Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Hold on, let me fasten my seatbelt. All right, I don't know how that acting was, but read them right now, people, right now.
That's right this second. I love it. What you been reading this week, my friend?
Oh, I had a really cool thing happen. We were away from home, and so that meant I was separate from like my must-read stack, but I had a bunch of other books laying around, and it let me gravitate or open my mind a little bit to something that I just wanted to read in that moment, which was cool. So the book that I chose from a bunch of choices, it's not like I settled, but it just wasn't, anyway, the book I chose has been so different, and I haven't read too many books like this, maybe none, but maybe I have and just don't remember. It's an alt history book, and I've heard you talk about books like this before, but I'm realizing it's in my wheelhouse, or at least this one is, because I also love sci-fi and things like that, and this feels like, even though it's like realistic history but alternate, if you will, it also has some sci-fi elements. So here's where the setting change kind of takes place around World War II time. But somehow, and I haven't even figured out yet, I'm like almost 300 pages in. I haven't figured out like how this happened yet, but it's more a technology-driven society. I think the catalyst now, they discovered a unique energy source back in like Kennedy's presidency. It's called Asterium or something like that. And that, I think, changed the course of history. So maybe I do know the catalyst. That's what did it. But all that to say, in addition to the Olympics and some of the political turmoil and tense national conflict that was happening or about to happen around that time, they introduced, or the alternate history is, in addition to the Olympic Games, they have these giant mech warriors, like 20-foot tall robots that people get inside. And it's like an Olympic Games every 4 years. And so that's woven in, and those mechs are powered by Asterium, and all of that is really cool, and it's been fun, and it's been really cool to have it placed, because not a lot of the sci-fi I read is placed with actual historical events that I'm familiar with and learned about. But in addition to all that, which I'm in love with, there are also some really cool and important elements of plot and identity that are in this book. So for example, Jo is her nickname. She is an up and coming mech pilot or battler, but I don't want to say but in the time, the fact that she's a young woman was held against her, and not, so she had all these barriers that her male counterparts in the sport didn't have to battle, like even sponsors and how she has to act to be considered for sponsors and things like that. So that's been an interesting thing as a principal and a dad of two daughters that I dialed into. And then on top of that, her mother is Chinese American, her father is a white man, and the climate at the time was very anti-Asian, and so she's had to kind of hide that part of her identity. And there's just I feel like I'm selling it short because I love the book so much, but that's part of the theme that she's trying to navigate, and almost like part of the ticking time bomb, if you will. Like, will that get revealed at the games, and will that, because that wouldn't even be allowed. Like, she wouldn't be able to make the US team with that information, right? So here's the cover. I kind of held off showing. The book is called The Great Destroyers. I'm breaking one of our things. It is an ARC. I don't think it's out yet, August 3rd. So it's coming soon this summer. And it's by Caroline Tung, Richmond. And the cool thing about ARCs, and the fact that you and I talk about our love of design and stuff.
Yeah.
I always look at book covers like kind of as an emotional experience, and I love the design. This one is powerful, and it evokes some power and emotion. And I like that they show Jo. I think that's very important. And I also wonder, I wonder how it might evolve before publication, because lots of times they do. So I really would recommend that you actually move this to your must-read pile before August, or at least write yourself a little note and then read it right when it comes out. Then The Great Destroyers by Carolyn Tung, Richmond. And Jenn, I have to say, so I'm at work today. This book has been sitting on my desk all day. It's a professional development day, and it's been so hard knowing I was going to talk about it with you. I'm like, because I said I was 300 pages in. There's not many pages left, and I'm like, oh my, so that means I left off on a really good part, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. So basically, after this, I'm going to speed home and finish reading The Great Destroyers.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of that book as well, but I haven't read it. And so, but it's in like that stack of, oh, I need to get to that one because it looks really cool. And like, I am a huge fan of those alternate histories, although I don't come across that many books are written that way. And I just love them. I think they're great. I love that idea, just as you said, of rooting some sci-fi fantasy elements in real historical events. This sort of like, how would this have been different if ... So it's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, and I got this book from Scholastic. So in other words, I might not have, I don't know, I might not have purchased, I'm so glad that it landed on my desk. I was just reflecting on the other quick thing. The cool thing about alt history that I'm noticing is a lot of the world building is kind of done. I mean, because we are familiar with parts of history, right? So you kind of can fill in so many gaps. So when they talk about Jackie O and Kennedy, like my background knowledge is triggering, and I'm already picturing things without them having to do the heavy lifting. But then they're also building this world where they're having to actually help you understand what's different and describing the PAX games is what they're called, these big arenas where these massive mechs are battling. So it's just such a cool, fun, powerful thing.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like, to our 3.5 viewers, when we say, we think you should read this now, I think our what we're really saying is we think you should plan to read this now. That just doesn't trip off the tongue.
That's a long hashtag.
It really
plan
is.
to read this as soon as you're able to. No.
It is, exactly.
Read this now, yeah.
Because I have a couple of arcs that I've been holding off sharing on the show, but I know I'll do it before they're actually released, because I won't be able to wait. And sometimes I think that that's, for me anyway, you just get so excited about a book when you read it. I want to share it while I'm still in the moment of that excitement, as opposed to waiting and then maybe forgetting some details or whatever. So sometimes we break our own rules, or guidelines, as you called them, which I like a lot. I think
another quick kind of reflective thing, having to wait before finishing the book, or choosing to wait. It's had me analyzing what I'm reading more than I might if I was just devouring it. So I'm there's a issue where some of the fighters are being injured or sabotaged or poisoned. Things are happening in these games, and it's a really big international event. I've been going through in my mind, like, how is that happening? What are the clues the author, like, should I know how this is happening? Which has been really cool, but it's also built suspense in me, like, because I do have a theory in my mind right now. So I can't wait to get home and just be like, am I reading too much into this, or is this a thing? So
yeah, I love that. I get really excited too when you and other people talk about that process of just being a reader. I think there's something really comforting and also joyful when you hear someone else talking about their experience as a reader being similar to yours, even though it's not the same book. Just this being able to recognize when someone says, I'm at the point in the book where I'm doing this thing or that thing because I feel this way about the book, etc. Even though I haven't read that book, I recognize that feeling. And so I guess I get a shot of the same sort of emotions in my brain as you are, because I recognize that feeling. I know what it feels like. And that's a really joyful thing.
Yeah. Awesome.
I love it.
So,
okay.
Jenn.
Well,
I can hardly wait. You always share good stuff. What do you got?
I'm going to break a rule today too, in so much as you're going to get a bonus book talk out of me today, because I'm going to focus on one book, but I'm going to share two in the process, because I don't think I shared the first book in this series last year when it came out, even though I really loved it. our 3.5 viewers may already know this, but just in case, I spend a lot of time thinking about news and media literacy. I think a lot about, in addition to thinking about helping kids become readers, I also think a lot about helping them consume information online and determining what's real and what isn't in that. And so I get real excited when I find books that sort of lend themselves to that work that I think of as something a teacher could put in their toolbox in terms of helping kids absorb some of these lessons that they need to be able to absorb in order to be safe and healthy online. And so, especially when the books aren't explicitly about that, when there's almost like a metaphor about it. So last year, one of my favorite books that did that was a retelling of the Chicken Little tale, The Real and Totally True Tale by Sam Webb. I'm going to say this wrong because I haven't practiced it. Wedelich is how I'm going to try to pronounce that name. Sam Wedelich. I apologize. I should have practiced that before this, but I did not. So, but I loved this book, and it's just a retelling of the Chicken Little story, and how the Chicken Little thinks the sky might be falling. But what's wonderful about that retelling is that when all the chickens lose their mind about the sky falling, Chicken Little says, "Hold up, we can't let emotion drive this. We have to look at the facts." And then they think about whether or not there's really evidence to support the idea that the sky is falling, right? So it's so cute. And again, it's just a fun story you could read with kids with absolutely no agenda. But if you're wanting to teach some digital citizenship skills, there's a metaphor in there, right? So this year, a sequel, a second in this series came out. And this is Chicken Little and the Big Bad Wolf. And this is the book I really wanted to book talk. I have been just perusing these pages over and over again. I'm in love with this book, Brad. First of all, the drawings are just so cute. I could just see kids loving this book and reading it over and over again because it's funny. Chicken Little wears these red cowboy boots, which become important in the story because it makes it hard for them to run when all the other chickens are going crazy and losing their mind this time because there's been a spotting of the big bad wolf. And of course, Chicken Little has to come to the rescue and say, wait a second, what do we know about this situation? And my favorite spread of this book is look how Chicken Little conducts this investigation of the information that they have about the big bad wolf. And I just love this sort of visual metaphor of investigating, and the yarn which their Chicken Little is tangled up in being how what guides, connecting the clues, so to speak. And again, you could share this with kids and have no hidden agenda about helping them become more information literate. But if you were working on that kind of instruction with kids, this would be just such a fun book to reinforce those ideas. And of course, Chicken Little then has to get the other chickens to quit running around with their heads cut off, as the metaphor goes, or as the saying goes, and examine what they really know about the potential big bad wolf sighting. So I love these books, and it's not simply because Chicken Little has red glasses, although that doesn't hurt. I think they're just so fun, and I hope there's going to be more in the series, but I wanted to share them both today, and they are out, so you can read them right now.
Very cool, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of mashing up fables and stories that we love and are familiar with is really cool to me. It reminds me a little bit of what Jennifer Donnelly does, just remashing one fairy tale. Question. So as I was looking at the cover, if you wouldn't mind sharing it again.
Sure, I'll share.
Sometimes I overanalyze things, but I'm speculating and wondering if the wolf is if it almost looks like Chicken Little's shadow. Like, is there a hidden suggestion? Like, I wonder, is there even a wolf? Do you know what I'm saying? It's really artfully done.
I will say this because I don't want to spoil it, right? Okay. Is that there is a real creature that Chicken Little bumps into, but their perceptions and misconceptions of that person based on what they've heard are proved or disproved based on their investigations. So they've heard a whole lot about the big bad wolf and they know to be scared. But then when they bump into someone who might be that person, they judge them, say, before they know all the facts.
Very cool.
It's awesome. I love it. So, Brad, if our 3.5 viewers would like to check out this video again or our other recommendations for books that we have been sharing for, oh gosh, Brad, over 3 years now, where can they go?
A lot of good titles at bit.ly/read_this_now.
Thank you, my friend. And thank you, everyone. Have a great week and happy reading.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jen.